Hey, everybody. Another conversation. Justin here with Three Geeks Podcast. I have Eve Richards with me. How you doing, Eve?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful to have you. I think we have a podcast coming out soon. You want to talk about that? The Discovery Pod. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Thank you, Justin, for having me. Yes, I do have a podcast that's actually going to be launching on April 18th. Very excited. So the Discovery Pod is very inspirational, motivational. I really just wanted to do a podcast where I'll have actors who've basically made it in the industry, folks in the business industry as well, just to come out, talk about success stories, obstacles, and just inspire. One of the reasons why I wanted to do the podcast, I lost my dad very unexpectedly last year. When I lost him, he was such an inspirational person to me and to my family. And I wanted something where I could pay it forward because he was so inspirational. So this for me is using my voice to inspire others. And great podcast. We've got some amazing guests and can't wait for folks to listen.
That's awesome. I love the idea of you kind of doing something in remembrance of your father. That's a wonderful thing to hear. Yes. Where can folks find it? And that's right.
So currently, we don't have any links just yet, but folks can watch us on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, or Google, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, anywhere podcast is available.
Awesome. So when you're trying to find your guests, are you finding them with like, hey, they have a cool story of what got them into the industry, or just how they made it, or what's kind of how does that conversation usually go for you?
So that's a great question. So luckily for me, my PR manager, Roger Neal, is also my executive producer. And I was very lucky to have Roger join me on this journey. It just kind of made it easier because I would say 95% of the guests, Roger was the one who helped book the guests. So it kind of made it a lot easier for us.
That's awesome. Now, do you have like stuff in the can? Have you already recorded some stuff and you're just picking it up?
Okay. It's episodic, right? So we've got 12 episodes. We've already recorded 7. And I have to give a shout out to my 2 co-hosts. I'm the permanent host, but I have 2 co-hosts who joined me this season. So there's Melissa Smith, and then there's Tony Blass. So both hosts, Melissa's doing 6 and Tony's doing 6 as well.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So do we envision like being season 1, season 2, like 12 episode seasons, and just do like a season 2 coming up? Is that the plan?
Correct. So no date yet for season 2. I would love to announce, but nothing yet. As you know, just want to be able to see the numbers and see how, everything, just basic. I want to learn from this. And then, but definitely would do a season 2. Not sure about the formatting, but definitely season 2.
Awesome. So is there any like teasers you can give folks in terms of like, oh, this episode, there's a fun story or anything you want to share?
Of course. So episode 1, which actually is the premiere episode, is about me, all about Eve. I think it's just for me wanting viewers to know a little bit about my background. I've got a hodgepodge of different things. My father was African. I've got a little bit of Caucasian in me. So there's all of that, right? But there's something as well about my PR manager, Roger Neal, who's been in the industry over 40 years. So he shares a little bit of tidbits about his life. And so folks have to watch or listen to hear all about me and Roger. Oh, and not only that, my acting teacher as well, who's a veteran actor. He's a producer. He's a director. He was actually supposed to be the guest on this episode. He flew from San Francisco, but then got rerouted to Vegas. So he actually did 10 minutes from an airplane. So folks got to watch it. Peter Allas, veteran actor. He's awesome. Seinfeld. Yes. So definitely a lot there in episode 1.
What a get rerouted to Vegas. I feel like you bribed the pilot a little bit.
Oh my God. So he could not land in LA or Burbank because it was such a windy day. What a trooper he was. I've got to thank Peter Allas, my acting teacher. Just the fact that he was able to do 10 minutes of the interview. He could have said, you know what, guys, I'm frustrated. He was on the plane for 5 hours, but he still did 10 minutes. So grateful to him.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned like the inspiration and kind of using that as the driving force for each one of your episodes is, and your father being the inspiration for kind of you kicking this off. Is there some like words of wisdom to your father that we can kind of live by, or something you kind of collected from him?
You know, I would have to say my dad, he was from Africa, but he was one of the things he always said to me, because he left Africa and went to Boston at age 16. He went to Harvard. But because he was a minority, one of the things that he inspired, as far as me and my brother, he said, guys, every time you go out into the world, I want you to represent yourself well. You know, in this world, sometimes we get judged based on your skin color, and people would look at you because you're a minority. They'll be like, oh, you know, I'm going into a very expensive store because I'm in jeans or I'm in a hat. Sure. People would say, you know what? I don't want her to come here because she's going to steal. So my dad always said, always remember that every time you go out, even though you might have a little bit of Caucasian in you, always remember that people are going to look at you differently. But it's not just about being brown skin or being Black. It's just generally one of the things he said is, when you want to inspire others or you want success, you know, just go out and seek it and don't be afraid, right? And so for me, when I wanted to do a podcast, I wasn't sure because I'm an actress as well. Is this what I really want to do? But my dad always said, never second guess yourself. And so that for me is something that everyone can live by. If you have a passion, go out and challenge yourself, right? Because you don't want to have any regrets in life. And I think that's the one thing that I always take from my father. Always go out and challenge yourself and have no regrets in life.
That's awesome. What a good message. I love that. Yeah. Do you have any learnings from folks? Let's say, because you're a pretty new podcaster. I mean, it sounds like your first kind of exploration into podcasting.
Yes.
If for new podcasters out there or budding ones, do you have any advice? Maybe not necessarily from your show, but just the podcast process in general that you've learned that you want to?
You know, that's a good question. And one of the things that I did a lot of research because like anything else, I wanted to take this, like it's a business, right? And my goal is like anyone else, like you want to succeed because, you know, it would make me proud. It would make my family proud of me. It would make my parents, both my mom and dad, proud. I have a younger brother, his kids, my family. I have family in Boston. Everyone is going to be proud of me. So my advice is just do a lot of research, understand the competitors out there, right? Understand your niche, because podcasting is great, but it can also be challenging. But for me specifically, it's all about doing the research. Roger has been excellent. He's an excellent executive producer, but I also wanted to understand the folks that I'm interviewing. So my recommendation would be if you could have someone who can produce your show, or even if you don't have that person, it's always good to do research, right? Understand your niche so you know what you're getting into. I think that's the key. And go out and challenge yourself. Do not be afraid, because you just never know who's going to listen to it, right? I think that's the key. It's just have fun with it. And I'm having fun with this.
That's awesome. I'm very glad to hear it. And so, to circle back to your co-host, did you know those folks prior to the podcast? Are they friends, longtime friends?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the Melissa Smith is actually, or she used to be, as an actor, I'm in an acting class, an acting studio, ZA studio. So Melissa was actually in my, acting class as well. She used to live in Seattle, and then she moved to LA 4 or 5 months ago. So through my acting school, I got to know Melissa 2 years ago. Tony Blass, I got to know Tony because we worked on a project together on a comedy, some show that we did together. We filmed it. Actually, it was a limited series last year. And Tony and I are actually working on a feature which is set in Sweden later this year. So gotten to know them. So yes, it's good to have that friendship relationship before hosting because it kind of makes the banter a lot easier.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Still wanting to do like the actor side of it. Has it been challenging to record podcast stuff while also kind of maintaining your kind of, I guess, your rigor and like your actor chops?
That's so I think because this for me has been something new. I haven't taken on any acting projects because I have the film that is filming in Sweden later this year. I'm rehearsing 2 nights a week for like 4 or 5 hours, twice a week. So between that and the podcasting, I just want to keep the space going.
Yeah.
Once the podcasting, I think we're going to be done recording very soon. Once it's done, I'm going to be out there looking for new opportunities as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's good to hear. Any other calls for your podcast? Anything else we want to talk about?
Yes, we've got such an amazing guest. I mean, very inspirational guest. We've got, I don't know if I can share. I think Roger would be okay with me sharing, but the guest for episode 2 is Sean Kanan. I don't know if you know Sean. Sean is a veteran actor. He was on General Hospital playing AJ Quartermain. He was actually on the Karate Kid 3, the movie, playing Mike Burns. He reprised his role as Mike Burns on Cobra Kai season 5, and I believe he's going to be on Cobra Kai season 6. So what a great guy, what a great actor, a motivational speaker. He does stand-up comedy, but there was so much that I got to learn from him, right? And I thought it was inspirational because he discusses a lot of the challenges that he went through as a young actor who was very successful. He talked about drinking and how he was able to overcome all of those challenges. And I think for any actor out there would be very inspired to listen to Sean's journey.
Yeah, I mean, hearing someone make it, right? I think it's probably a huge deal, especially when you're just trying. I mean, everyone's cutting their teeth in the industry, right? I mean, I would imagine it's good to hear someone that made it.
Exactly.
Do you, not to put you on the spot, do you have any favorite stories you've heard so far?
Oh my God. So one of the very first guest that we interviewed, he used to be president of research and development for Walt Disney. He is someone that I've gotten to know. He's actually a mentor, Bran Ferren. Bran is an incredible he's won an Academy Award. He's won several awards. He pioneered technologies for Paul McCartney, David Bowie. To me, he's the modern day Einstein. He's just so smart. He's a visionary. He's a car designer. It's like the list goes on. I was like pleasantly surprised to hear about this guy. So one of the things I found out which surprised me was like looking back at his successes. He was like, I don't want to think about the past. And he doesn't have a journal because he said, why look in the past, right? Sure. So it's like with everything that he has going on, he just wants to continue challenging himself. So that for me was very enlightening.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, when it comes to podcasting like us, when we have conversations with a lot of different people, which I imagine you're going to come across, sometimes the conversation, it can be hours, hour and a half. Like that's just not enough time. You want to bring someone back several times even. Have you had that yet? Have you have a person who's like, man, we talked about this, and this, but I really want to talk about XYZ more things. Is that a season 2? Like, have you thought about that? Maybe that's more semantics now, but have you had that conversation?
Definitely. So one of the actors we actually had, he was actually the second guest that we interviewed for season 1. Thaao Penghlis. I don't know if you've heard of Thaao Penghlis, but Thaao has been a veteran actor. He's been on Days of Our Lives for 40 plus years. And he's actually hosting a podcast called Lost Treasures, where he talks about archaeology. it was one of those guests that he was so inspirational because he got to meet Jacqueline Kennedy. He cooked Greek shortbread for Jacqueline Kennedy. He had so many stories that
yeah, so good.
When we finished the interview, we didn't even have enough time. It was like, oh my gosh, I just wish we could go on and on and on and on, right? So it's like he's one of those guests that you just want to delve deeper into, and there was not enough time. So
now for your podcast, is it go into the conversation kind of peters out, or do you have like, is it hour blocks, 30-minute blocks? Like
it is. It is because I'm doing the recording at a podcast studio, and
gotcha.
So it's just the hour blocks where it's a 45-minute to do the recording. And I wish we had more time, but again, season 1 for me is all about experimental, right? Yeah. And then season 2, I think we'll do some fun, different things and make it more fun, maybe more interactive. Maybe we'll get the fans engaged. Who knows? We'll just keep all of it open just to see.
Now, are these in person? I guess I should have asked that originally. Are these all in the same room interviews or over the phone? Obviously, the one on the plane's different. But.
So we've had in-person interviews, and we've also had Zoom. Like we had a Dr. Jutali Balatin, who is an incredible person, someone that you've got to know, meet, or hear about. She got into investment banking at age 13. Yes.
Well, all right. Yeah.
I'm like, what? Exactly right. So she decided to leave the investment banking world and start her own kids' curriculum because she wants kids to become financially secure. She's doing such amazing work.
I love that.
She lives in New York, so we did the interview via Zoom.
That makes sense. Do you notice a difference between, say, a Zoom call or a call on an airplane versus in person?
Totally. One of the other actors that we had, his name is Rico E. Anderson. Rico used to be, he was an actor on Star Trek. Rico was in person, and I felt having the in-person was so engaging, right?
Yeah.
It was like, just because you're able to look at that person and you're able to connect and you feel the energy. And it was so conversational. It was incredible. But also the pacing was very fast-paced. And I said to myself, I just wish we could have all the guests in person, but Yeah.
And that's kind of the peek behind our curtain, right? That's kind of a regret I have, is almost all this stuff being over an online format. Is like, I'm looking right at you, but like, you can't tell. Like, I'm like, I have to like look at my webcam if I want to be like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Am I engaging with you really? Or am I reading something, right? It's hard for someone to see. It's like,
yeah. So where are you located?
Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah. I thought I read that. Mm-hmm. Exciting. So you're doing the podcast with two of your friends.
Yeah. We have Max and Jason. They've been doing this thing way longer than I have. I'm the third geek. There's been a rotating third geek for a long time. So I'm the new one. But we've been doing this for a long time and really liked it. We have a live show every Saturday that feel free to check us out. It'd be fun to have you on if you ever want. Yeah.
It's fun. So what advice do you have for someone who's new into podcasting?
Yeah. I think if you're going to go the YouTube route, getting good shorts is a great way to get engagement to your long form content and making sure they're linked. We're not great at that. I think we need to get better about it. But like, let's say this conversation, let's say I make a short out of it and I post it on YouTube, it gets 2,000 views or whatever.
Wow.
XYZ change. Now we could use that in the description to link it back to this general conversation. I think that helps. Now, it doesn't always help, but like, I think making sure that like your short form links back to the long form, assuming that the short form is coming from that long form.
Got it. That's great advice, because again, this is all new for me and I'm learning, and the first episode premieres on Thursday, April 18th, 12 p.m. Pacific time. So there's a lot of excitement, but there's also this anxiety, like, oh my God, are people going to watch it? Are people going to listen? So it's like,
it's stressful. Yeah. It's every time we release a video, I'm like, are people going to like it? I hope so. I will say, I think all the research I've done, it's best to not, like, however you want to release your stuff is how you want to release your stuff. But having I wouldn't just do one. I would do 2 or 3 and just do like episode 1, 2, and 3 out there. However you want to do it. You don't have to, of course, but I think YouTube favors folks, at least for the YouTube format. I think it favors having kind of a back catalog, because if episode 1 blows people away, they're going to want to see, hey, am I really committed to your stuff? Let's go to episode 2. And you get what I'm saying? Like, it might be beneficial to release them in chunks, almost like I think Amazon Prime and Netflix will lean towards this too, right? They release 2 or 3 episodes and then they give a break, then a couple of episodes. I don't think you go that far, but maybe a couple of episodes initially, get people to know you, your guests you're going to bring on, what conversations can they expect, and then pull from like, hey, now we're going to get on a cadence of whatever you guys were planning on.
That's great advice. Yeah, I'll leave that up to my
how do you want to do it?
Producer to see how he's been producing podcasts for quite a while.
Trust him plenty. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna let Roger, who's also my PR manager, just handle that, just because he knows best. And so I'm just gonna. All I just want to do is, even if I think just generally just listening, and I think again, it's all about inspiring others. I had a passion and I said, hey, why not tap into it? I think the one advice I would, again, just based on your previous question is, I think, again, just doing the research. But then if you've got good equipment and you want to do it at home, fine. But I could do it in my house. I could do it in my office. But as you can see, generally the lighting is very good. But there's a lot of sun coming in and I can't escape the sun. It's like, okay, I'm literally trying to see, like, I don't even have any of my lighting on, but it's like one of those things that I was like, oh my gosh, unfortunately it's happening at 4 p.m.
Well, your sun's going down a little bit. You look great. Your hair looks great. It looks fine. You're doing great.
Okay, thank you. So I think, again, I don't do the podcasting from home because I don't have good acoustics, right? So
that's totally fair.
I use a podcast studio because for me, I wanted to have someone, an engineer, the team, they do all the editing right there. So it just kind of works for me.
I think that's a great idea, especially if you're going to do them in person. Yes. I think that's like a lot of our stuff is all still very digital, and I don't think it really matters. But I think for you, if you're going to have people just come into I would not feel comfortable people coming to my house, like interviewing them. Totally. So like, I think that's a great idea that you're going to have a studio to bring people to and have an engagement there. There's a safety level there too, right? People probably won't enjoy coming to your house without meeting you, right?
Yes, I would not. I don't think I would want to come to my house. I would not feel safe doing a show, right? Because the space, right? And you want to keep that. And I think cost-wise, it's definitely cost effective to do it from home, but it's just the acoustics in my house are they're not the best.
Sure.
And I wanted the quality at least to sound somewhat professional, right? Like you very clearly, right? So you must have great acoustics.
Well, there's a microphone right here. Like there's a lot of other stuff that goes into like making this not sound terrible, and that's something we grew through too, right? When we first started, it was just like a webcam mic, and it didn't sound great. Also, what was I gonna say? I had more advice to give you, but I forget offhand. I would say that. Oh man, I had something for you. I just lost it. I'm sorry.
It was about the lighting and all of that stuff.
Well, that. Let's say you're not happy with whatever visual you're going to get. As long as the audio is good, generally for podcast sake, like that, you're golden. Slap some B-roll over top of it and just call it a day. You know what I mean? Like people just care that you're getting engaged and talking with them and engaging them like through this format. I think audio wise. So I think you prioritize the right stuff. Is all I'm trying to say. Is just audio is way more important than video, I think.
So are you guys recording like twice a week consistently throughout the year?
So, it is, well, a lot of it depends on, we have a handful of folks that we kind of get people from, like in terms of booking people to join our show. And then from there, just whatever the client, you being the client, can be available. We kind of try to cater to that. Okay. And then every Saturday we have our show. And every once in a while, we'll have like one-off stuff that we do kind of ourselves. Like Max and I do a random cooking show when we have time. Max is super busy, so it's whatever. Or like we have some friends that through the podcasting game that we just jump onto their stuff. That was another suggestion I was going to make. As you grow as a podcaster, I would encourage you to, even if it's not us, but like just general podcasting, the smaller podcasts, really help each other out by getting people. Like, hey, I have someone that's interested in talking to more people. Cool. We'll send them my way. Like, there's a lot of engagement there. Like, there's Facebook groups and things like that of people that. So I would lean into that too, and we can get you engaged with some folks too. But honestly, just chatting with other podcasts, like doing what you're doing now, and kind of curating that kind of engagement, so that like, hey, I have a person you might like to talk to. And like kind of hammering out that relationship so you can get more guests, and vice versa, right? If you have someone you talk to that maybe makes sense for a geeky podcast, you'll be like, hey, Justin, I got somebody that you might enjoy talking to. That type of stuff. Yeah,
like I think the guy that I said, he's like a mentor to me, and he's someone who's so smart. He worked for Walt Disney. He is someone who's into technology, but he's also into the movies, and he did some Broadway stuff, right? Like he's well-rounded, right? That I think it's someone that your audience may want to tap into, right?
Sure. If you're open, I wasn't trying to fish from you. So if you want to,
totally. I think also because he's also doing something that he's not sure if it's going to be YouTube or it's going to be on any of the networks, right? Where he's someone who knows a lot of celebrities. And so what he wants to do is have this interviews where he's interviewing different people. It's not a podcast, but it's an interviewing style. And so I think talking to like him being on your show would also help because it's all about getting a different fan, tapping into a different fan base. So definitely, I would definitely connect you with him and
please,
from there.
Yeah. What else is there? Other advices. Thumbnails for YouTube can be hit or miss. They can really drive engagement or not. I've yet to hammer that out in terms of our success, but I do think there's something there in terms of getting people to actually click on your video.
Okay.
I've learned that long intros, at least for us, didn't work. I don't think people stuck around very much if you had a super long intro.
Got it. Good advice. Intros so far with the 7 episodes that we've taped, they're pretty short. So I do an intro and then I'll sort of interview my co-host for a few minutes, 2-3 minutes, and then we get right into the guests.
Perfect. And by intro, I don't even mean you talking. I mean like some folks, and we were guilty of it when we first started. We had like a 30-second like guitar solo, like here's our show, like that type of thing.
Right.
And it's like I'm not sure this is benefiting us. That's it.
Got it. Wow. Interesting. Just because I think we have that as well, right? So people would listen. So
if it works for you, try it out. But to me, like under 5 seconds ish has been good for us, I think.
Okay. Wow. I think would have to see just because we haven't. We haven't launched, right? So 2 weeks and we'll launch. So
sorry. I think what I would do is like maybe see if it works. Because some shows can do it. Some shows just like your audience doesn't care and they'll watch through it. Just pay attention to those retention metrics that YouTube and other platforms give you, saying how long before they clicked off of my video. Like, is it less than 30 seconds? If it is, well, we didn't really get to anything that I'm trying to talk about. You know what I mean?
Wow. So I think 60 seconds is usually like the norm, right? So 60 seconds. Yeah. Wow.
So just think about it. Like in terms of like using that stuff to really lean into it, because I think it's been beneficial for us. Like how many people are like, a lot of people that watch our shorts and our YouTube videos aren't subscribed. Like a lot of the views we get, they've yet to click that stupid little button. So like maybe calling that out in like a future episode, like, hey guys, I'm noticing that you're really like you're coming back, but you're not hitting the subscribe button. Like my metrics are 70% to 30% subscribed. Like I'd really like to switch that, you know what I mean? Or whatever. So,
okay. That's interesting. Wow. All of those things that it's like, you got to pay attention to the matrix because that helps, right? Sort of like, so are you doing a lot of like cross promotions and how do you get?
Yeah. So a lot of it, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, or I guess X. We go on other people's podcasts. Like Jason and I, that folks that are listening, Jason jumped on prior to this conversation.
Yeah.
And we'll go on to like Jeff Dwoskin. He's a comedian. He has a live show every Wednesday. We went on to it last Wednesday or 2 Wednesdays ago.
Nice.
And we chatted with him, and we talked about like our podcast on his stuff. So basically what you're doing here, we do also for other podcasts. You know what I mean? We just go across and say, hey, our audiences might overlap somewhere, so it might make sense for us to talk to you. And again, we're just building that relationship with other like especially small podcasters. We're all trying to make it. So we're just trying to make sure like we're a rising tide raises all ships, right? So we want your ship to go up with us. Type of deal.
And how long have you had your podcast? Like, how long have you been?
I've been helping for a couple of years. Jason and Max have been doing it for like 10. But I will say it's just a lot of it. A lot of that stuff was just live shows talking and us just making videos to make videos. I don't think there's a lot of interviews that happened during the past 10 years. Do you know what I mean? Like we've had a YouTube channel out there and friends talking with friends. Does that make sense? And the interviews started. Yeah.
So it's very unlike mine, where each episode it's like you got to do research on the guest. Like you guys are just very spontaneous, right? It's whatever it's like current or.
And our live show, we're not talking to anybody, but it's a friends, right? It's a group of friends. We've known each other I've known them for 7 or 8 years now. They've known each other for longer, right? So we're just chatting about what came up during the week and that interests us. And
so do you interview so you've had like the comedian that he came on your show. And so was that very like topical? There was nothing. It was just.
It was more about like their history, their backgrounds, like what are they promoting? A lot of times people come onto our show because they have a need to get a thing out. Like, is it a new website? Is it a new movie? Is it a new whatever? Right. So it's really just that. It's like, let's talk about that one thing first. And then everything else is just kind of what interests us in terms of trying to get information from. Oh, did you work with Jean-Claude Van Damme? Well, let's talk about that. Like, do you have any fun stories from set? Did you enjoy being a producer? Did you enjoy being a director? Like, what were the challenges of being a producer and director? We have had composers on here. I love talking to composers. We had Randy Edelman. We did 2 interviews with him, and he played music for us. It was great.
Wow,
I loved it.
That's amazing. It's funny you just said that because we interviewed Rex Smith. Rex Smith used to be, I don't know if you know of Rex Smith. Okay, he's used to be a teen idol. He's a singer, he's an actor, but he's someone who had a great song when he was a teenager. It was like a huge song. It's called You Take My Breath Away. Oh, I've heard it. I've heard that. Yeah. Right. And so he was the first actor to play the live action of it was a Marvel, but I can't remember it. Sorry. But anyway, he's done so much. And when he came, actually, he was Zoom, but he sang for us. And that was incredible. Like, wow. It's awesome. It was like, oh, my goodness, here's this guy he became famous when he was a teen. Like, he was a teen idol. And he's always going to be known as this feathered heartthrob, right? So it was incredible that he was able to sing for us. So I could totally get where you're coming from. Yeah, it was so much fun. But I'm having fun with it. Learning as I go along. We've got a few more episodes to do. So I think so far it's been very engaging. But all of the shows that we've taped, some have been very, very inspirational. Like one friend of mine, he's 32. He got into acting when he was a teenager. He left his home state of Michigan, moved to LA. What happens? You make a lot of money and then you get into other stuff. Yeah. A lot of stuff. That happened to him. He had to move back home and he just returned to LA and now he's trying to get back. So I like stories like that, right? Because it's hopeful. It gives everyone hope that as a young man, he made a lot and now he's trying to rebuild, but he's doing things very differently. Sure. And learned that his name is, Martin Hale, and he's learned that you've got to hang out with the right crowd, because this is an industry where, there's a lot of, there are good people, but there are people who are going to try to influence you. And he got influenced to do other things.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
yeah,
so
that's
what I wanted to say was, those are the stories for me that I find very inspirational.
I can't wait to hear about it. I think that's great. I love hearing about different things like that. And I think that's a great avenue for podcasting, and I look forward to watching them all.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm so far very proud of what we've done. Some interviews are more uplifting, right? Yeah. Because of the nature of the conversation, like the one with Rico E. Anderson, because he was right there in studio. And so we had that FaceTime. Sean Kanan, even though it was Zoom, but he's just that type of a person, very motivational, that it didn't feel like it was Zoom. And then someone like Bran, who is so smart, Bran Ferren, who is so smart, but yet he could talk about the roof and the ceilings and all of this things that I'm like, okay, what is he talking about? He's so geeky, but yet he's able to break it down to a level where even someone who's not into that very specific can understand him, because the guy is just so gifted. And he's someone who does a lot of keynote speeches all over the world. Like, I don't know how many he does a year, right? So, and then there's, a Thaao Penghlis with such an incredible story. I got to share this. He moved from Australia. He's Greek. His parents moved to Australia, and they did not speak any English, right? So when he was a teenager, he worked as an immigration officer in Australia, but he knew he wanted a different life for himself. He had no mentors in Australia, had a one-way ticket to New York at age 18, got to New York, found himself, started taking some acting classes, found himself selling art at an very prominent art gallery, sold a painting to Jacqueline Kennedy.
That's
got
cool.
to meet people, like he said, Robert Redford, all of those, right? But he had a dream. He came to the United States with $180.
That's incredible.
Somehow he's been able to be on a daytime show for 40 plus years.
That's incredible.
But not only that, he acted with the late Elizabeth Taylor, Omar Sharif. There's Doris Roberts was one of his best friends. I mean, he cooks. He has a cookbook, Seducing Celebrities One Meal at a Time.
That's awesome.
So it was like, wow. You listen to all of this, but all of them have something in common. They're all doing different things. Like Thaao has a podcast, right? The Lost Treasures, all about archaeology and exploring, from the Greeks and all archaeology. But again, the fact that he was able to do this and he educated himself.
Yeah.
To me,
incredible.
It's incredible. And then my friend, this lady that I got to meet, she's coming on. She's been on, she actually did a movie called The Last Christmas. She was she played Danny Glover's wife. Monique, the actress who won an Oscar, was in this movie as well as a Christmas movie. Gabrielle Union, but she also came from Paris. She's French-American, right? She came from Paris. She did not know a lot of people. Rachel is her name, Rachel Killian. Somehow she's been able to navigate LA, and she found her niche, the networking, and she's doing amazing things. So those are the stories for me that kind of make me feel like, wow, this was incredible.
That's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time. We've been talking quite a bit. Is there anything else you want to kind of tell the folks or reiterate where they can find you when it's published?
Yes. Again, folks, the first episode 1, is all about Eve and my acting teacher, Peter Allas, getting to know him. And of course, my PR manager and executive producer, Roger Neal. You got to hear a little bit about him. So episode 1 premieres on April 18th, 12 p.m. Pacific time. You could watch us on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, or you could listen to us on iHeartRadio. You can listen to us on Amazon, Google, Spotify, Apple, or wherever podcast is available. Again, lots of interesting guests, very inspirational guests. Looking forward to all of you watching, listening, and thank you all.
Awesome. Well, I'll reiterate that. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a wonderful evening. See ya.